The great chamber of the Galactic Council sat at the heart of Axis Prime, a massive station floating in neutral space where no empire held claim. 47 species sent their representatives here to argue, negotiate, and occasionally make decisions that shaped the future of known space. The chamber itself was a wonder of engineering. Thousands of seats rose in circular tiers around a central platform, each section designed to accommodate the unique biology of its occupants. Aquatic tanks for the Veloci, heated alcoves for the cold-blooded Drathak, pressurized pods for the gas-breathing Munkari. Today, the chamber buzzed with anticipation. The matter before the council was simple but significant. The Drathak Dominion had formally requested authorization for what they called a protective intervention against the human species. High Councilor Morath, an ancient being whose species had helped found the council 3,000 years ago, called the session to order. His voice carried easily through the translation systems that made communication possible between such different forms of life. The Drathak Dominion may present their petition. Ambassador Cressix rose from the heated section of the chamber. He was tall for his species, nearly 3 meters of scaled muscle and cold intelligence. His eyes, yellow and slitted, swept across the assembled representatives with barely concealed contempt. Honored Council, Cressix began, his translator rendering his hissing speech into smooth diplomatic language. The Drathak Dominion comes before you with grave concerns about the species known as humans. In the past century, they have expanded from their home system to colonize 12 worlds in the Outer Rim. Their population grows at an alarming rate. Their technology advances faster than any species we have previously observed. He paused for effect, letting his words sink in. If left unchecked, humanity will become a threat to the stability of the entire galaxy. We propose a limited military action to contain their expansion and ensure they cannot threaten the established order. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several species shifted uncomfortably. The Drathak Dominion was not known for limited anything. Their empire had swallowed 16 smaller species over the millennia, and those species no longer existed as independent peoples. High Councilor Morath turned his attention to the human section of the chamber. The human delegation may respond. Ambassador Helena Vance stood. She was small by the standards of most council species, just under 2 meters tall, with dark skin and gray-streaked hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, dark blue with silver trim. Nothing about her appearance suggested power or threat. "Thank you, High Councilor." Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. "I appreciate the opportunity to address Ambassador Cressix's concerns." She smiled slightly, and something in that smile made several nearby delegates uncomfortable, though they could not say why. The Drathak are correct that humanity has colonized 12 worlds. We are a young species by galactic standards, and we are eager to find our place among the stars. We have established trade relationships with 17 species. We have joined the Council's scientific exchange programs. We have followed every protocol and regulation required of member species. Helena spread her hands in a gesture of openness. We pose no threat to anyone. We simply wish to live in peace. Cressix made a sound that his translator rendered as a snort of derision. Pretty words, but the council should examine the facts. He activated a holographic display that appeared above the central platform. Human military capacity. 200 warships of various classes. 2 million ground troops. Orbital defense platforms around their major colonies. The numbers hung in the air, glowing softly. Compare this to the Drathak Dominion. 3,000 warships. 50 million soldiers. The outcome of any conflict is not in question. We are not proposing conquest, merely containment. A brief military action to establish boundaries that humanity will respect. Helena watched the display with an expression that might have been amusement. The ambassador presents compelling numbers. I cannot dispute them. Humanity is indeed a small power compared to the Drethek Dominion. She paused, and again that strange smile crossed her face. I can only say that Earth would prefer peace. We will negotiate in good faith with any species that approaches us with honest intentions. But if we are attacked, we will defend ourselves. Several delegates leaned forward, expecting threats, warnings, desperate pleas. Instead, Helena simply sat down, as if the matter was of no particular importance to her. High Councilor Morith conferred briefly with the other senior council members. The debate that followed lasted several hours, but its outcome was never truly in doubt. The Drethek were a major power. Humanity was not. The council could not afford to antagonize the Dominion over a small, young species that most members had barely noticed until now. The final vote was not for authorization, but for abstention. The council would not support the Drethek action, but neither would it oppose it. In practical terms, this gave the Dominion everything it wanted. Cressix accepted the decision with cold satisfaction. The Drethek Dominion thanks the council for its wisdom. We will ensure that humanity's containment is handled with appropriate care. Helena Vance rose one final time. For the record, I wish to state that Earth considers this abstention to be abandonment of a peaceful member species. We had hoped for better from the galactic community. She gathered her materials and walked toward the exit, her small delegation following. As she reached the door, she paused and looked back at the assembled representatives. I hope you will remember this day, honored delegates. I hope you will remember that you had a choice. Then she was gone. In the chamber, delegates turned to other business, already forgetting the brief unpleasantness. The matter was settled. Within a month, perhaps two, humanity would be contained, and the galaxy could continue as it always had. No one noticed that Helena Vance did not return to her ship immediately. Instead, she went to a secure communications room deep within Axis Prime's diplomatic section. There, using equipment that the station's security system somehow failed to detect, she sent a single encrypted message to Earth. The message contained only 4 words. They've chosen. Wake the sleeping. Far away, in the frozen darkness of Europa, a moon of the gas giant Jupiter, something stirred. Beneath kilometers of ice, in caverns that had been sealed and forgotten for decades, lights began to glow. Systems that had been dormant for 40 years received power for the first time since their construction. In the main control center, dust-covered consoles flickered to life. Displays showed the status of thousands of systems, all reporting ready. At the heart of the facility, a massive door began to open, revealing a cavern so large that its far end was lost in darkness. Within that cavern, row upon row of warships waited in silence. Not 200, not even 2,000. These were vessels that had never appeared on any register, never been counted by any intelligence service, never existed in any official record. And Europa was only one of many such facilities. Across human space, the same scene repeated, in hollowed-out asteroids, in the crushing depths of gas giant atmospheres, in stations hidden in the darkness between stars. Lights came on, systems activated. Crews were woken from cryogenic sleep. The galaxy had looked at humanity and seen a small, young species with modest ambitions and limited power. They had seen exactly what humanity wanted them to see. The truth was different. The truth was waking up. On Earth, in a bunker buried beneath mountains that had once been called the Rockies, Admiral Sarah Chen received confirmation that all primary assets were online. She was old now, nearly 90, but her mind was as sharp as it had been when she first proposed the Sleeping Fleet Doctrine 6 decades ago. She had been young then, a junior officer who had studied human history and drawn uncomfortable conclusions. Every powerful nation in Earth's past had eventually faced the same problem. Neighbors saw strength and felt threatened. They formed alliances. They launched preemptive strikes. Strength invited destruction, but weakness invited conquest. So humanity had chosen a third path. They would show the galaxy weakness while building strength in secret. They would be friendly, cooperative, harmless. They would make themselves easy to underestimate. And when the inevitable attack came, they would be ready. Admiral Chun looked at the status displays showing fleet after fleet coming online. Carriers the size of small moons. Dreadnoughts bristling, with weapons that human scientists spent decades perfecting in hidden laboratories. Troop transports carrying soldiers who had volunteered for decades of frozen sleep, waiting for the day they would be needed. 200 warships, the galaxy believed. The true number was closer to 16,000. Chun allowed herself a small smile. The Drethic had no idea what they were about to awaken. None of them did. Webb considered the question. We're a young species, Commander. Young and small and surrounded by empires that have been conquering each other for thousands of years. The awakening of humanity's hidden military was not a single event. It was a wave that rolled across known space, revealing secrets that have been kept for generations. From the asteroid belt of Sol came the first great surprise. What intelligence services had mapped as mining operations and ore processing facilities transformed before watching sensors. Asteroids split open like eggs, revealing the warships hidden within their cores. Carriers larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen emerged from the darkness, their hulls still bearing the rock camouflage that had concealed them for decades. From Jupiter's orbit came the second surprise. The research stations and fuel harvesting platforms that had operated openly for years began disgorging smaller vessels, but these were followed by something else. Rising from the crushing depths of the gas giant itself, where no species had ever thought to look, came dreadnoughts. Their hulls were built to withstand pressures that would destroy ordinary ships, and their weapons were designed on principles that Galactic Council scientists would study for years. From Saturn's rings came swarms of automated defense platforms, tens of thousands of them, hidden among the ice and rock. From the Kuiper Belt came silent hunter-killer ships that had drifted in the cold darkness, their crews in cryogenic sleep, waiting for the signal that had finally come. And from the space between stars, from the empty void that connected human colonies, came the ghost fleets. These were the oldest of humanity's secrets, ships that had been built, crewed, and launched decades ago, then ordered to drift in the darkness until needed. Their crews rotated through cryogenic sleep, a few awake at any time to maintain systems and monitor communications. They had waited 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Some had waited 40 years for this moment. Now they were all awake. Now they were all moving. On the Drethic colony world of Vethrix, a minor outpost far from the front lines, the population went about their daily lives without concern. The war was far away. Their defenses were adequate. There was no reason for alarm. Then the sky filled with human ships. Not attack ships. Troop transports. Heavy landers. Supply vessels. An entire invasion force that had crossed light years of space without being detected, using routes and navigation techniques that should have been impossible. The garrison commander had exactly 6 hours to consider his options before the first landing craft touched down. He chose surrender. It was the wisest decision he ever made. Across Drethic space, similar scenes played out. Human forces appeared without warning, bypassing defended positions to strike at vulnerable targets. They moved with a coordination that suggested decades of planning, which was exactly what it was. Commander Vorak, now a prisoner of war on New Valentia, watched the reports with grim fascination. He had dedicated his life to military strategy. He understood campaigns, logistics, the mathematics of war. What humanity was doing should have been impossible. Sergeant Webb visited him occasionally. The old soldier seemed to feel some responsibility for his former captor, a strange human sentiment that Varric did not fully understand. "How did you move so many ships without detection?" Vorik asked during one such visit. "Our sensor network should have spotted you light years away." Webb shrugged. "You designed your sensors to detect the things you expected to find. Engine signatures, energy emissions, communication signals. Our ghost fleets don't use conventional engines when they're drifting. They don't emit energy. They don't communicate. They're just cold metal floating in empty space. For decades." "For decades," Webb confirmed. "It's not comfortable duty. 6 months awake, then 2 years in cryo. Knowing that if the signal never comes, you've spent your life waiting in the dark for nothing." Vorik tried to imagine it. Volunteering for such service. Choosing to spend years frozen in the void on the chance that someday your species might need you. Why would anyone agree to such a thing? Webb's expression grew distant. "Because we remember our history, Commander. We remember what happens to species that can't protect themselves. We've been conquering each other for thousands of years before we even reached space. We've seen civilizations rise and fall. We've seen what the strong do to the weak." He met Varric's eyes. "We decided we would never be weak, no matter what it cost us." In the Galactic Council chamber, emergency sessions had become permanent. The Council remained in continuous debate as reports flowed in from across Drethak space. Human forces had eliminated 80% of the Dominion's military capacity in less than 3 weeks. The remaining Drethak fleets were retreating to their core systems, abandoning occupied territories and former conquests. Ambassador Helena Vance appeared before the Council in person, having traveled from Earth aboard a ship that was now officially listed in human fleet records. She walked to the central platform with the same calm composure she had shown throughout the crisis. High Counselor Morth addressed her directly. "Ambassador Vance, humanity's military actions have exceeded anything previously recorded by a Council member species. You have destroyed thousands of Drethak vessels. You have invaded sovereign Drethak territory. You have demonstrated military capabilities that you concealed from the Council for decades." Helena nodded acknowledgement of each point. "The Council demands an explanation. How did you hide such power? Why did you hide it? And what are your intentions now?" Helena was quiet for a moment, considering her response. "High Counselor, honored delegates, I will answer your questions honestly. Whether you believe me is beyond my control." She touched a control, and a holographic display appeared above the platform. It showed a timeline stretching back over a century. 112 years ago, humanity made first contact with galactic civilization. We were young, naive, excited to join a community of intelligent species. We believed we had found friendship and partnership among the stars. The display showed early human diplomatic missions, smiling faces, hopeful declarations. Within 5 years, we had learned the truth. The galaxy is not a community. It is a competition. Species rise and fall. Empires expand and collapse. The strong consume the weak. This is not cruelty. It is simply reality. She moved to the next section of the display. We studied galactic history. We found patterns. Young species that revealed their full potential were destroyed before they could become threats. Young species that appeared weak were conquered and absorbed. There seemed to be no path that led to survival. "So you created a third option?" Morth said. "We created a third option," Helena confirmed. "We would show you a version of ourselves that seemed manageable, friendly, cooperative, non-threatening, a small fleet, a modest military. Nothing that would trigger the defensive alliances that have crushed so many rising powers. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of species. Meanwhile, in secret, we built our true military. Hidden facilities. Silent fleets. Forces that existed nowhere in any record, crewed by volunteers who knew they might never be needed, but prepared anyway. We hoped, genuinely hoped, that we would never have to reveal any of this. But the Drethak forced your hand, Ambassador Kresic said bitterly. He looked diminished now, his scales dull, his posture defeated. The Drethak made a choice, Helena corrected gently. They looked at our small fleet and our peaceful diplomats and decided we were prey. They were wrong. She deactivated the display and folded her hands before her. Now you ask our intentions. This is fair. You have seen what we can do. You deserve to know what we plan to do. The chamber was absolutely silent. Humanity has the capability to destroy the Drethak Dominion completely. We could reduce their homeworld to ash. We could hunt down every surviving ship, every scattered colony, every refugee vessel. We could make them extinct. She paused, letting the weight of this statement settle over the delegates. We will not do this. Confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. We are not conquerors. We never wanted to be warriors. We built our fleets for defense, not offense. Now that we have defeated the Drethak military, we have no interest in slaughter. Helena produced a data crystal and placed it on the platform before her. These are humanity's terms for ending the conflict. Complete Drethak disarmament. Their military will be reduced to defensive forces only, monitored by independent observers. War reparations to be paid over a century, calculated to rebuild what they destroyed without crippling their civilization. A formal admission of unprovoked aggression entered into council records. She looked at Kresic. In exchange, humanity will withdraw from Drethak space. We will not occupy your worlds. We will not enslave your people. We will not take revenge for our dead. Kresic stared at her as if she were speaking a language he could not understand. Why? You have the power to destroy us. Why would you choose mercy? Helena's expression softened slightly. Because we remember what it means to be conquered, Ambassador. We remember what it means to have our futures stolen by those stronger than ourselves. We fought so hard to become strong, precisely so we would never have to inflict that suffering on others. She stepped back from the platform. Humanity is not your enemy. We never were. We only wanted to be left alone to build our civilization in peace. Your dominion refused to allow that. Now you have seen the consequences of that refusal. A voice hardened Jay. The council deliberated for 6 days. During that time, the Drethak Dominion's military effectively ceased to exist. Human forces did not pursue fleeing ships. They did not attack vessels that surrendered. They did not bombard cities or massacre civilians. Instead, they moved methodically through Drethak space, systematically destroying every military installation, every shipyard, every weapons factory. They were surgeons removing a cancer, precise and thorough. Drethak civilians watched in confusion as human ships entered their systems, ignored their population centers, and focused entirely on military targets. This was not how wars were fought. When the Drethak conquered other species, they broke them. They destroyed not just armies but cultures, remaking the defeated in their own image. The humans seemed interested only in ensuring the Drethak could never threaten them again. Beyond that, they showed remarkable restraint. On the 6th day, High Counselor Morath summoned Ambassador Helena Vance to receive the Council's response to humanity's terms. The chamber was packed. Every species with representation had sent their delegates, and observers from non-member civilizations filled the galleries. This moment would be studied by historians for millennia. Everyone wanted to witness it firsthand. Helena entered alone, walking to the central platform with the calm dignity that had become her trademark. If she felt any anxiety about the council's decision, she showed no sign of it. Morith rose to address her. He was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species, and he had seen much in his centuries of service. But nothing had prepared him for this. Ambassador Vance, the Galactic Council has considered humanity's terms for ending the current conflict. He paused, and for a moment, the weight of history seemed to settle on his narrow shoulders. Before I deliver our response, I wish to ask you some questions. I hope you will indulge an old diplomat's curiosity. Helena nodded graciously. I am at your service, High Counselor. You have demonstrated military power sufficient to destroy the Drethic Dominion entirely. In galactic history, no species in such a position has ever chosen restraint. Empires expand. They consume. It is the natural order of things. Morith's voice carried genuine confusion. Yet you offer terms that allow the Drethic to survive as an independent civilization. Why? Helena considered the question. Because destruction was never our goal, High Counselor. We built our fleets to protect ourselves, not to conquer others. The Drethic attacked us. We have defeated them. That is sufficient. But surely you could claim their territories, their resources. Their former subject species would rally to you. You could build an empire greater than any in galactic history. We could, Helena agreed. But why would we want to? This simple question seemed to genuinely puzzle several delegates. Helena continued. Empires are expensive, High Counselor. They require constant military presence, administrative overhead, the suppression of rebellions. They breed resentment that festers across generations. The Drethic spent millennia building their dominion. What has it brought them? Fear from their neighbors. Hatred from their subjects. And now, destruction at our hands. She shook her head. Humanity has no interest in ruling over unwilling subjects. We want trade partners, allies, friends. You cannot make friends by conquering them. From the Drethic section, Ambassador Kresic spoke. His voice was hoarse, broken by days of desperate negotiations and the crushing weight of defeat. You expect us to believe this? You have proven yourself capable of deception on a galactic scale. How can we trust anything you say? Helena turned to face him. You cannot, Ambassador. Trust must be earned. We lied about our military capabilities because the truth would have led to our destruction. But we never lied about our intentions. We said we wanted peace. That was true. We said we would defend ourselves if attacked. That was true. We said we preferred friendship to conflict. That was true. She spread her hands. You chose to disbelieve our words and interpret our restraint as weakness. That choice led to war. Now you face a different choice. You can accept our terms, rebuild your civilization, and perhaps someday become our partners rather than our enemies. Or you can reject our terms and face the consequences. What consequences? Kresic demanded. You claim you do not seek our destruction. I said we do not seek your destruction. I did not say we will allow you to rebuild your military and threaten us again. Helena's voice hardened. If you reject our terms, we will continue our campaign until there is nothing left of your military infrastructure. No shipyards. No academies. No supply chains. You will be reduced to a pre-spaceflight civilization, dependent on the goodwill of your neighbors for basic technology. She let this sink in before continuing more gently. Or you can accept our terms. Keep your civilian industry. Keep your colonies. Keep your culture. Accept reasonable limitations on your military and pay fair compensation for the damage you caused. In 50 years, perhaps less, you could be a normal member of galactic society again. The choice, when presented this clearly, was no choice at all. Morith cleared his throat. Ambassador Vance, the Council has voted to endorse humanity's terms. Ambassador Cressix, the Drethek Dominion is strongly encouraged to accept these terms. Failure to do so will result in the Council formally recognizing humanity's right to take whatever actions it deems necessary for its security. Cressix slumped in his seat. The Dominion had hoped for Council intervention, for some coalition that would check human power. Instead, the Council had chosen the winning side, as it always did. The Dominion accepts, he said quietly. We have no other option. Helena nodded. A wise decision, Ambassador. Humanity will work with your government to implement the terms fairly. We have no interest in humiliating you further. As the formal processes of surrender began, delegates from other species watched with fascination and fear. Humanity had revealed itself as the most powerful force in known space. What would this mean for the galaxy? The Veloci Ambassador, a being of flowing water contained within a transparent encounter suit, approached Helena during a recess. Ambassador Vance, my people wish to understand humanity's intentions toward the rest of the Council. You have defeated the Drethek with ease. What is to stop you from conquering other species? Helena looked at the Veloci with what seemed like genuine warmth. Nothing is stopping us, Ambassador. If we wanted to conquer your homeworld, we could begin tomorrow. Your fleets could not stop us. No coalition of Council species could stop us. The Veloci rippled with alarm, but Helena continued before panic could set in. But we will not do this. Not tomorrow. Not ever. Because conquest is stupid. She smiled at the Veloci's obvious confusion. Your species produces some of the finest art in the galaxy. Your scientists have made breakthrough discoveries in fields we are only beginning to explore. Your philosophers ask questions that we have not yet thought to ask. If we conquered you, we would lose all of this. We would replace partners with resentful subjects. We would trade cooperation for the endless exhausting work of occupation. Helena shook her head. Humanity does not want servants, Ambassador. We want neighbors. We want friends. We want civilizations that trade with us, that share ideas with us, that challenge us to become better than we are. Pretty words, the Veloci said carefully. But you will forgive us if we are cautious. I would expect nothing else. Trust must be earned. We deceived you all for decades about our true capabilities. That was necessary for our survival, but it still means that our credibility is damaged. Helena met the Veloci's eyes directly. Watch us, Ambassador. Judge us by our actions over years and decades. See how we treat the Drethek. See how we treat our trading partners. See what kind of neighbors we become. She smiled again. And if you still don't trust us in a century, well, we'll keep trying. We have time. The Veloci drifted away, clearly uncertain but somewhat reassured. Similar conversations happened throughout the day. Species after species approached the human delegation, probing, questioning, trying to understand what kind of power had suddenly emerged in their midst. Helena and her staff answered every question patiently, consistently presenting the same message. Humanity wanted peace. Humanity wanted trade. Humanity wanted friends. Humanity had no interest in conquest or domination. But underneath every friendly word was the unspoken reality that everyone now understood. Humanity had hidden its true strength for decades. It had fooled every intelligence service, every spy network, every analyst in known space. It had built ghost fleets and hidden armies while presenting a peaceful face to the galaxy. And if humanity had hidden one fleet, the delegates wondered, what else might be hidden? What other secrets were waiting in the darkness between stars? This question, perhaps more than anything else, would shape galactic politics for centuries to come. Not humanity's demonstrated power, but the fear of what power they might still be concealing. On Earth, Admiral Sarah Chun watched the Council proceedings via secure transmission. She was satisfied but not triumphant. Too many good people had died in the Drethak attack. Too many families were grieving. Victory had come, but it had come at a cost. Her aide approached with a report on the decommissioning of the ghost fleets. With the war over, many of the hidden assets would be revealed and integrated into the official naval structure. There was no longer any need for such. 1 year had passed since the Drethak surrender. The galaxy had changed in ways both obvious and subtle. The Drethak Dominion no longer existed as a political entity. In its place stood the Drethak Republic, a demilitarized state under human oversight. Former subject species had been granted independence. Former conquered territories had been returned to their original inhabitants. The empire that had terrorized known space for millennia had been dismantled in less than a standard year. What surprised the galaxy was how the humans managed the transition. There were no mass executions, no cultural purges, no forced relocations. Human administrators arrived on Drethak worlds, not as conquerors, but as supervisors, working alongside local leaders to maintain essential services while the new political structures took shape. The war reparations were steep, but not crippling. Human economists had calculated exactly how much the Drethak economy could bear without collapsing. They wanted compensation, not destruction. They wanted the Drethak to pay their debts, not to starve. On the former Drethak colony of Vethrix, young Drethak grew up with a very different view of humanity than their parents had held. The humans they knew were teachers, engineers, administrators. They built schools and hospitals. They invested in local infrastructure. They treated Drethak citizens with a respect that many had never received from their own government. This confused the older generation terribly. They could destroy us. A Drethak elder complained to anyone who would listen. They have the power to end our species. Why do they help us instead? His grandson, born after the war, had a simpler view. Why wouldn't they help us? We're neighbors now. This generational divide would shape Drethak society for centuries to come. In the Galactic Council chamber, the changes were equally dramatic. Several aggressive species had quietly begun disarmament programs. Not because the Council required it, but because their leaders had done the mathematics. If humanity could hide one fleet, they could hide 10. If they could defeat the Drethak in weeks, what chance did smaller powers have? Better to be humanity's friend than to risk being their enemy. Trade with human space had tripled. Species that had barely noticed humanity before now competed for access to their markets, their technology, their expertise. Human products appeared in stores across the galaxy. Human entertainment found audiences in every sector. Human ideas spread through academic and philosophical circles with remarkable speed. Some council members viewed this cultural expansion with alarm, but most recognized that humanity wasn't forcing anything on anyone. They were simply offering, and the galaxy was choosing to accept. Ambassador Helena Vance had been appointed to a newly created position, Arbiter of Peace. Her role was to mediate disputes between council species, using humanity's unique position as both a major power and a trusted neutral party. The irony of the situation was not lost on anyone. The species that had deceived them all for decades was now trusted to judge fairly between them. But Helena's record spoke for itself. In her first year as Arbiter, she had resolved 17 territorial disputes, 3 trade conflicts, and 1 brewing war between species that had been enemies for 2,000 years. She was fair. She was firm. She was backed by a fleet that could crush any species that rejected her rulings. It was amazing how reasonable people became when they knew that defiance was suicide. On the former occupied world of New Valencia, Sergeant Marcus Webb had finally received his long-delayed promotion. Colonel Webb now commanded a joint peacekeeping force made up of humans and Dreythic serving together. It was an experimental program designed to build trust between former enemies. His former captor, now formerly known as Citizen Vorak, had been assigned to the same force. The former commander had accepted responsibility for war crimes committed under his command and served 2 years in a rehabilitation facility. Now, he was a civilian consultant, helping human forces understand Dreythic military culture. They shared drinks occasionally, the old human soldier and the former Dreythic commander. Their conversations had become something like friendship, built on mutual respect earned through conflict and its aftermath. "I still don't fully understand your species," Vorak admitted during one such evening. "You had total victory, complete power, and you chose to rebuild us rather than destroy us. In all of Dreythic history, no victor has ever made such a choice." Webb considered this while sipping his drink. Maybe that's why Dreythic history is so full of wars that never really end. You crush an enemy, they rebuild, they attack you again. The cycle never breaks. "And you believe your approach is different?" "I believe it could be." Webb shrugged. "We'll see. Maybe in 100 years, the Dreythic will be strong again and decide to take revenge. Maybe everything we've done here will be forgotten. But I'd rather take that chance than be responsible for wiping out your entire civilization." Vorak was quiet for a long moment. "My grandson asked me about the war recently. He wanted to know why we attacked humanity. I tried to explain about threats and containment and strategic necessity." "What did he say?" "He asked why we didn't just talk to you first." Vorak made a sound that his translator rendered as bitter laughter. Children ask such simple questions. And sometimes the simple questions are the hardest to answer. Across the galaxy, in the council chamber on Axis Prime, a ceremony was taking place. A new species was making first contact with galactic civilization. They called themselves the Malori, and they were beautiful by most standards. Tall, slender beings with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotional states. They had just achieved faster-than-light travel and sent their first diplomatic mission to the Council. The Malori ambassador approached the central platform with obvious nervousness. Thousands of eyes watched her, representatives of dozens of species she had never imagined existed. The weight of history pressed down on her. Everything she said and did would shape her people's relationship with the galaxy for generations. High Councilor Morath welcomed her with the traditional words used for new species. He explained the Council's structure, its rules, its purpose. He introduced representatives from major powers and encouraged her to establish diplomatic relationships. When it was time for questions, the Malori ambassador had one that she clearly considered important. "We have studied your transmissions. We have tried to learn about your galaxy before coming here." She paused, her skin flickering with colors that her translators struggled to interpret. "We noticed a species that seems very important. They are called humans. They appear frequently in your news and entertainment. Their ships are everywhere." She looked around the chamber, trying to read the expressions of beings whose body language she did not yet understand. "Can you tell us about humanity? What should we know about them?" The chamber fell silent. Representatives exchanged glances. For a long moment, no one seemed willing to answer. Finally, Ambassador Cressix rose. He had recovered some of his dignity in the past year, though he walked with the weight of a leader who had presided over his empire's defeat. His scales had regained their color, and his voice was steady. "I will answer this question," he said. "Perhaps I am the best qualified to do so." The Malori ambassador watched him approach with obvious curiosity. "Humanity," Cressix began slowly, "appears to be a friendly species. They smile often. They engage in trade and cultural exchange. They seem eager to make friends with everyone they meet." He paused, choosing his next words with obvious care. "They have a small fleet. Perhaps 200 ships. A modest military. Nothing that would threaten a major power. Another pause. Longer this time. I once believed this was the truth about humanity. I made decisions based on this belief. Those decisions led to the destruction of my empire and the deaths of millions of my people. The Mallory's skin rippled with alarm. Around the chamber, delegates shifted uncomfortably. Humanity is more than they appear, Cressix continued. Much more. They have capabilities that they do not reveal. They have patience that spans generations. They have the power to destroy anyone who threatens them, and the wisdom to choose mercy when destruction would be easier. He looked directly at the Mallory ambassador. My advice to your people is simple. Be their friend. Genuine friends, not opportunistic allies. Trade with them. Learn from them. Invite them to your world and accept their invitations in return. His voice dropped, becoming almost gentle. And never, ever give them a reason to show you what they are truly capable of. Because I have seen what humanity can do when they are threatened. I have watched my fleets burn and my empire fall. I have learned lessons that I hope your people will never need to learn for themselves. The Mallory ambassador was silent, her skin cycling through colors that suggested deep thought. You speak of them with respect? Fear? Both, Cressix admitted. And something else. Something I did not expect to feel. He paused, and when he spoke again, there was wonder in his voice. Gratitude. They could have destroyed us. They chose to help us rebuild instead. I do not fully understand why, but I am grateful nonetheless. He,